everybody. Welcome again to CBL's Frenemies of the People. I'm Dennis. It's Natalie, Patrick, Eleni. We're just talking about media and politics, and this will be coming out on Memorial Day. So thank you to all those who served. We are not sponsored by Notre Dame High School, but we ought to be. Home of the Dons. All right, so it seems as though our mayor is in a fight with our president. And I had an interesting conversation with our colleague, Sienna, yesterday, who's not unable to join us. She's out on assignment today. But she was asking why? Why would he be engaged in this fight? So it all started last weekend when he was in front of a Southside congregation with Bishop Brazier and was speaking about economic development, which morphed into contract opportunities for some of the more prominent Black contractors at projects like the rolling construction project that is O'Hare Airport. And he was quoted as saying, "One thing I know for sure, I have to do over these next 2 years, every single dime that our people have been robbed of, I'm going to make sure that is returned 2 or 3-fold." So that prompted a response from the U.S. Attorney General's office, the Assistant Attorney General for Civil Rights under President Trump, Harmeet Dillon, who fired off a letter just after the Sunday appearance. And that appearance went on to talk about all of the African Americans that he has hired in his administration. And the Attorney General said that an investigation had been authorized into whether Brandon's administration was violating federal civil rights laws in its hiring practices. And the Assistant Attorney General Dillon, as the Tribune put it, mused in the letter about whether Johnson's administration was showing a pattern of favoring Black candidates in employment decisions. The mayor then doubled down and fired back at the president, calling him a monster. So Sienna was asking me, why would he do that? I have my own political analysis on this, but I throw it out to you experts as to why he might be picking this fight with POTUS 47.
Let's all not jump at once at the opportunity. We talked about this a couple of weeks ago. It's showing up in the Democrat polling that the base wants a fight, and if you're not fighting, you're getting angry calls from constituents or interactions, and so the mood of the opposition party is full scale, nonstop campaign mode. And that's really what this is. This isn't, in my opinion, a serious effort at governing. It's a giveaway to the political base. I just don't understand why anyone would want to, on either side, being investigated by the federal government is an enormous distraction. And we've got more than enough problems and opportunities to solve in the city of Chicago. But I welcome other perspectives.
Natalie, I think the key phrase that Patrick used there was political base. When your political support is as low as Mayor Johnson's is right now, it's a time to rally your base. And to some extent, perhaps his natural ethnic base, the Black community of Chicago, was a little bit taken for granted by the mayor in his last campaign. And so is there a little of that involved here?
Yeah, I think, as Patrick said, it's red meat for the progressive base, picking a fight with Donald Trump, but then it's also trying to shore up support among Black voters, which is a key constituency for any Chicago mayoral candidate. If you look back at the numbers during the last Biden-Trump campaign cycle, there was a surprising number of Black voters who came out in support of Trump, including in the city of Chicago. So it's a fine line for the mayor, but he's absolutely, returning to home, or the home base as we talk about it, and pulling out that playbook and tossing red meat to his supporters to get them back on the bandwagon.
So the mayor and the president are seeing red. But speaking of seeing red, Eleni, the red line seems to be the latest problem for a transit bailout in Springfield. Um, the Crane Chicago Business reported this week that the red line extension from south of 95th Street to the city and state limits, south in the 100s there, is going to cost $1.1 billion a mile. And Greg Hines had a commentary that at a total of 5.7 billion overall, the project is approaching 3 times what the CTA spends annually to operate its entire fleet of trains and buses, 3 times what it takes to run the Chicago Police Department, twice the cost of completely rebuilding Union Station for the 21st century, and 3/4 of the cost of the terminal expansion at O'Hare for a 5-mile extension of one L line. How's that going to play, or how is that playing in Springfield? You just came back from Spring Vegas. What did you hear?
Yeah, it's not sounding great, that's for sure. I think there's a lot of issues down there, and there's not a lot of time left. Have about a week to go until the end of session, and it seems that the transit discussions have kind of stalled, which is not surprising. It's very hard to come to a conclusion, and many folks are just like, well, let's just plug the gap and give them the money and reforms later. But I don't think they're going to be able to get that done because there's been enough attention on the massive issues that are happening there that need to be fixed before our government can consider, helping them plug their gap financially. So that's one of many issues that is not looking great right now. Also in Springfield, we had, an energy omnibus bill that was opposed by just about every major player that's involved in this issue. Not a good sign, once again, as we're getting towards the end of session. And then the budget issue. We've seen now that this is going to be the first real budget where they're going to have to make some cuts, and who's going to get on that list, and how are they going to decide who it's going to be? It's a very different time down there right now, and it's going to be interesting to see where this all shakes out as we get to May 31st.
Well, we know it will be terrible. Just to look ahead a little bit to our "It's Going to Be Terrible" segment, we know the next week in Springfield is going to be terrible, and maybe you'll have more thoughts on that. Also terrible was a recent special section in the Chicago Sun-Times, and we work closely with the Sun-Times, and they're looking at this. Eleni's cousin wrote a story about how this happened. So there's a freelance writer, and I won't pick on the poor guy. He was working for the King Features Syndicate, which has been a syndicating operation. They provided content long before the internet. They were providing content to newspapers around the country for many, many years. And so he wrote about great summer reads and summer activities. And he included a list of 15 books to bring along at the beach or at the pool. There were alluring titles like Tidewater Dreams by Isabel Allende, The Collector's Peace by Tyler Jenkins Reid, Hurricane Season by Britt Bennett. There was one problem. Those books don't exist. And the reporter admitted that he went to AI to get the list of books. He's quoted as saying, "Stupidly, and 100% on me, I just kind of republished this list that an AI program spit out. Usually it's something I wouldn't do." And my head exploded. I mean, journalism, won the Preakness, but journalism hasn't had a win in 25 years. And of course, it's a old guy like me who's screwing around with AI, doesn't know what he's doing, and taking a shortcut and writing this stupid article. And it is a perfect example of how we are just amusing ourselves to death with AI. So I don't know. I don't know what else you can say about that.
It's like
Well,
the
I
CTA
think I
for
had a similar
investments and
situation
go ahead.
earlier this week with another smaller outlet downstate where,
That's right.
you know, and I'm not going to name names either because everyone's struggling across the board, but, definitely the initial draft of the story was written using AI. And AI can definitely be a helpful tool if it is checked and cross-checked and double-checked constantly. And so, we had to go back to the reporter who had not even reached out to us on the issue to say, hey, you have some content in here, but it is one-sided. Let's give you the other side. And it definitely, and you can see the way the story was outlined out, even how it was printed. I've seen ways that ChatGPT uses that same template. So I think, AI can be helpful as long as it is monitored and used appropriately and correctly. We should not want AI to do everything for us because then we will not exist. So that's important.
That does sound terrible. Natalie, what are your thoughts on AI creating your news content for you?
Well, as I was going to say, it's like ghost buses for the CTA and ghost books for the Sun Times. I think what Eleni said is just people still matter. You still have to fact check. You can't rely on the bot to get it right. And if you're not using your foundational skills as a journalist and as an editorial team, you're in trouble.
Yeah, I know I'm the old man yelling at the clouds on this, but I think it's just another excuse not to think. I'm worried about what kids are going to be facing in school. And the other day I heard an analyst admitting that literally thousands and thousands of jobs will be lost as AI, gets more and more into the marketplace. And I heard another tech bro talking about how exciting it is that we'll have driverless cars. And so you'll have a chauffeur in the front, and in the back, you'll have a mobile office to do your work. And I was thinking, to do what work, right? If we take this to the absurd extreme. Anyway, I'll keep yelling at clouds off screen. Even AI could not have come up, Patrick, with the cover up of President Biden's decline and the media's complicity in it, along with national Democrats. And I raised that in our little hyperlocal conversation because, of course, we got some Chicagoans involved. So our friends at Politico wrote that not only has it been causing a lot of stir and criticism, some coming from the media, much of it coming from Republicans who are saying, I told you so, but some Chicagoans that are weighing in or that have been now come forward and told reporters Jake Tapper and Alex Thompson that they had some reservation, they had some strong words. So, of course, Ari Emanuel yelled at someone. The reporters say that he was in a shouting match with President Biden's former chief of staff over whether the campaign should continue back in 2023. Bill Daley, venerable Chicago Politico, former White House chief of staff to President Obama, apparently pushed for a primary so that Governor Pritzker, Governor Newsom, and Governor Andy Beshear could duke it out and compete for the nomination. And he apparently, according to these reports, came to the conclusion after he attended a fundraiser at the home of Michael and Carrie Sachs, who are very, they're business leaders and also big campaign bundlers for Democratic candidates. And apparently, at this private event at Michael Sachs and Kerry Sachs' home, Biden spoke with a teleprompter. So that was as Politico put it, a foreboding moment. So we got Chicagoans involved in trying to correct their own record.
It's going to be something that they'll have all to account for, and it's going to be a way to distance themselves in a way. I'm the breath of fresh breath of new air. I saw this, or my supporters. Trust me, I'm the wave of this next generation of leadership. When you do look, the National Democratic Party, they did have a generational set of leaders that didn't go anywhere for a while, and so there have been some folks stuck on the team or on the bench, as we say, and we've talked about the reshuffling here in Illinois caused by all that. But this will be a fun issue, I guess, in media, kind of for folks like us that like to see these things and how they unfold. But largely, I think elections are always about the future. To be president in 2028, if you're campaigning about grievances from 2024, I'd be curious how durable that message is. But it can certainly trip some people up. And there are some questions floating around that will be fodder for, we need to undo this bit of legislation, or here's why this should change. So it's not a good look.
So while we're in the neighborhood of Naperville, this might be an opportunity for Natalie and Eleni to offer their analysis that U.S. News came up with its rankings of the best places to live. And I haven't looked at the full list, but nowhere in the top 20 is Naperville.
With its beach.
Right. Sky's got a beachfront property there.
I'm sure it'll be on the next list. Patrick's already calling over there to correct the record, so we'll see. We'll see a revised list coming shortly.
It was probably that freelancer who made
Do you
the
have any
list.
analysis of this, Patrick?
You can't win them all. We don't want to, put that much out there and be the only great city in America to live. So we will let others bask in the glory for a little bit. But some jokiness on this list aside, if you look at the Illinois communities, Chicago ranked 20th on the list.
So
And there were a
already,
lot of other great suburbs and communities, central Illinois and stuff ahead of it. And, Dennis, you and I just came from a city or a tour down south, and the amount of building cranes in the city of Chicago versus some of these other growing metros, the people are voting where the cement is being poured, and the city definitely needs a turnaround.
You notice how he flipped the script there, Natalie?
I
Made it
did.
Chicago's problem. That
It was well done.
Chamber for life.
All right, well, let's use that as a good opportunity to talk about things that are they're going to be terrible. And I've been eager to jump in on this before we get to the queen of terribleness, Selene. I think that obliques are terrible because the Chicago Cubs are getting crushed by obliques. We're in first place. Even when this comes out, I'm convinced we will still be in first place. But we've had our outfielder, all-star outfielder, Ian Happ, was down for a couple of weeks with an oblique strain. Our great young pitcher, Javier Assad, has been out all season with an oblique strain. Our rookie third baseman was out for weeks in spring training, and it got him off to a slow start to the season. Matt Shaw, oblique strain. Porter Hodge, our reliever, went out this week with an oblique strain. So I think this is something that Secretary Kennedy needs to look at, except he might blame vaccines for the problem. But it's spreading through the Cubs clubhouse like it's COVID. So I think it's terrible. Natalie, what do you have that's terrible?
Well, I think the Cubs should just be bathing in sewer water like Secretary Kennedy. That might do the trick. Sewer water is terrible, bathing in it.
Really.
Another thing that's terrible is having to spend a Memorial Day weekend in the suburbs at a soccer tournament. So, love my kids' sports activities, but not the entire holiday weekend. So, sounds pretty terrible.
Well, you can put a little something in that Yeti. Patrick, what's going to be terrible that you're looking forward to?
I have to assemble an electric tractor because we only had one for our backyard and the boys couldn't possibly share. So I get to assemble an electric tractor that has a John Deere that has a front loader on it as their gift for completing the school year. So when you see me next week and I have no fingers or I've been impaled and I'm only half the man I was, it's because I was run over by an electric tractor driven by a 2-year-old.
And that might
With a
not
front loader.
help your rankings on the next rankings of awesome places to live. So try to be careful with that. All right, Eleni, big
Yeah.
finish.
I mean, I'm gonna definitely go with going to be terrible for whoever ends up on the short list of the budget cuts by the end of next week. That's going to be really terrible.
None of our
And
clients, though.
it's gonna be something we've never really seen before. So going to be terrible, but also kind of interesting to see where it all shakes out. And also Memorial Day parades, always terrible. So,
Wow. Why do you hate America?
well, campaigns, never got, other than working in Springfield for the government work, all campaign and political folks have Memorial Day parades to work. So always terrible.
It does bring back some bad memories, for sure.
Definitely.
It is illegal to throw the candy in a parade in Naperville. So it's actually a trapping enterprise. You could do 15 hard months if you throw that candy. Just heads up to the candidates. Don't throw. You don't want to have a whole commission chasing you down if you threw the candy at the parade.
That's a great
You know
campaign
that.
tactic, though.
Well, folks, it's only fun until someone gets hurt, and that's why we are frenemies of the people. We thank you for joining us, producer Grace. Grace Draws Stuff is our producer. She also produces stuff, and we look forward to seeing you again next week. Have a great holiday weekend, everybody, as we kick off summer.